What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's third exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Anthony.
And for this exclusive segment, we are going to be doing our weekly stardom sit-ems for this upcoming weekend. Before we get into that, be sure to check out our other content this week, where we did our best bets, our waiver wire pickups. It might not be too late. And we also did a recap of what happened last week. And on a podcast that is coming out tomorrow, we did our...
It will be today.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow today, but tomorrow it'll be today.
It's not today. Where we do our weekly head-to-head picks. I'm currently up a game. Had a couple of differences, so see how that goes.
Yeah, in our one-on-one wager season-long series, Ryan's record's 18-14. I'm 17-15. I'm right behind him one game.
I'm not proud of either of our records.
No, I made up some ground last week. A record I am proud of is our best bets record. I think we are sitting at 10 right and 4 wrong right now. This week's are all going to be right as well, so we're going to be at about 16-4 after this week. So be sure to check yesterday's best bets video out. Go ahead, win some money. Place the best bets from the greatest podcast on turf. Not just saying we are not financial advisors. We are not telling you to go spend your money. We are just saying that we are making these bets and we recommend you go make these bets as well. Also, be sure to check out after this video. Make sure you get your lineup set. Set your lineups. We're giving you guys the best, most accurate stardom sit-em information in this video to guarantee a fantasy football win. That is something I can guarantee. And before we get into it, I want to tell you guys real quick about a new up-and-coming clothing apparel business called CM Apparel. Our friend from college, his name Chris, he started up an clothing apparel business called CM Apparel. It was an up-and-coming online clothing business. Sells sweatpants, sweatshirts, t-shirts, window decals, and many, many more different things. Now, the good thing about CM Apparel is that 10% of every purchase automatically goes to a charity of his choice. So this month, up until the end of October, 10% of every purchase will be going toward the American Cancer Society. And if you go on CM Apparel website, it'll be linked at the top of the description, and you use promo code GPT, you'll get 10% off your purchase, along with the 10% that will be going to the American Cancer Society. So be sure to go ahead by the end of October, check out CM Apparel, and use code GPT for 10% off your purchase.
Yeah, be sure to go check it out. It's a good thing he's doing, and it's also good clothes that you can wear.
Absolutely.
They look great, and they're supporting a good cause, so be sure to check that out. Also, be sure to check out our sponsor, Little Italy Pizzeria. We're sitting in a restaurant right now. As you can see, there's tons of booths. You can come in, sit down with the family, have yourself a nice dinner, a nice lunch. Come in, get yourself a drink at the bar. Come watch the football games. We got a TV on pretty much every single wall. Good food, good people. Come in, check it out. Have a nice meal.
I make the best cheesesteak in the state. Another funny story about the pizza shop. I actually had 2 customers last night, I swear to God, that said if I wasn't making their cheesesteak, they weren't going to order one. I swear to God. My dad will back it up. Everyone will back it up. A guy literally said, old timer dude, very nice older gentleman, said, are you making the cheesesteaks tonight? Because if not, I'm not ordering one. Swear to God. So come get a cheesesteak, come get a pizza. Link to the bio to their brand new, link in the description to their brand new website. It's got my uncle's location, our location, catering details, hours, menus, all that stuff. Be sure to check it out. All right, before we get into it, we had a few fan submitted questions this week. Our boy Ryan H commented on our last video. Sounds like Buddy's going through it. A lot of fantasy questions, but luckily you came to the right place to get them answered. So the first one said pretty much, I really need a bounce back win. I don't know what to do. I'm really nervous. Should I add Gainwell and drop McManus?
The answer to this is, if you have another kicker,
yes,
absolutely. There's no need to have 2 kickers in fantasy football. I don't care if you have a bye week. Pick them up when you have a bye week. 2 kickers is a waste of space.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've never done. I'm all for the 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, but 2 kickers.
I'm not.
No. And then the next question he asked was, should he add the Panthers defense? And if so, who should he drop between the Patriots defense, Ronald Jones, Elijah Mitchell, Nyheim Hines, or Jacoby Myers? I will say, Patriots do have a tough schedule coming up. They got New Orleans next week. Then they play the Bucs the week after that. And I know they have a couple of tough games down the line after they play Cleveland. Bills twice still they got to play. They have a tough schedule, so I would recommend the Panthers defense, especially tonight. They play the Texans, who got Davis Mills starting. So, I mean, I would probably drop the Patriots defense out of all those guys.
You don't want to hold two defenses,
Yeah,
same as kicker. So if you're picking up a defense, drop yours unless if it's the Patriots of 5 years ago, then yeah, and you're not keeping two defenses.
Nah, and then he asked if he should add Darius Slayton and drop one of the players that he just referenced. No.
Unless it's Sterling Shepard.
Yes.
As in the player that you're picking up, Sterling Shepard.
Yes, but Slayton probably not. You have Antonio Brown and you're debating on starting him. Well, unfortunately, I don't mean this in a mean way, but you're not. Because
you asked this before it happened, but in case you don't know, it happened. He got COVID, so
yeah,
you want to put him on your IR if possible, and you can pick up Slayton if you want.
Yeah,
since it's free, or you can go look for somebody else.
Yeah, and then you asked about KJ Osborne from the Vikings. It's looking like, I mean, you kind of said it here pretty much. He is, the Vikings have been running a lot more through receiver sets because of the injury of Irv Smith at the beginning of this year. So, I mean, that's why he's been seeing 6 or 7 targets. If he's on the waiver wire, go ahead and pick him up over a guy like Darius Slayton, just because he is getting 6-7 targets a game in a crowded offense, and he seems to be the Vikings' big play guy this year. I mean, last year it was Justin Jefferson. The years before that it was Adam Thielen. We've seen a lot of KJ Osborne's catches have been big downfield plays. So, I mean, I'd recommend Osborne if he's there over a guy like Darius Slayton. That's just me personally. What are your thoughts on that one?
I'm indifferent on a guy like KJ Osborne. There is good things about him. There is the fact that he is a second-year receiver, and usually second-year players do really good. He's getting a lot of targets. It's also good. He's showing out. That's good. And he's also playing on a team with Adam Thielen, who's getting up there in age, and he could potentially take that spot from Adam Thielen. That's all good. The only question mark for me is the Vikings they're a team that likes to run the football. So so far he's been safe with volume, but I could see a day where he just doesn't get it because Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen got to get it. I know he's doing great so far, so roll with it until the wheels fall off, but that's kind of where I'm at with that one.
Yeah, and then that wraps up your question, Ryan H. Thank you for coming to us. We appreciate it. We answered your question, and then I know you had one, and then I had a couple asked to me.
Sterling Shepard or Tyson Williams?
Sterling Shepard, and it's not close. Like we're going to talk about in a little bit when we talk about some of these stardom sit-ems. Giants, Falcons will probably be a high scorer, and Sterling Shepard has been killing it.
I don't think you could be wrong with Tyson Williams either. He's averaging about 6.5 yards per carry, going against the Detroit Lions defense that is one of the worst against the rush, was the worst last year. Williams has led the team in carries and touches the past couple weeks, so I don't blame you for going Williams.
Yeah, and then I had a couple questions asked. These weren't as much stardom sit-ems. These were just kind of about players. I was asked about what's the deal with Ezekiel Elliott. Would you like to take that one?
The deal with Ezekiel Elliott is the Cowboys kind of realize that they don't need to feed him the ball every single play. They have a guy like Tony Pollard that can take the ball more and do good things. I still think Zeke will be involved. I also think Tony Pollard will keep being involved. I could see this being a closer split. I could see this turning into a Cleveland Browns type of split. So it's kind of where I'm at with that one. It's not a great situation. Zeke isn't as good as Nick Chubb, so he's probably not going to put up the same numbers, but I see it being a Cleveland Browns type of deal.
That's fair. And then I was also asked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well, and what the deal is with him in that Kansas City offense. Because, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one. He's a guy who coming into last year, we thought he was going to kill it in the offense. He was what they needed at running back, and he had about an average year. I think he had I almost want to say 1,000 total yards. Maybe a couple touchdowns, but I mean, he just hasn't really gotten going yet this year. I don't know if he's looked particularly good. So I mean, I'm sure he'll pick it up eventually. He kind of had a slow start to last year. He was very inconsistent at times, but I mean, they've revamped the offensive line in the offseason, so I mean, hopefully and maybe he'll pick it up. I wouldn't really read too much into it. It is only 2 weeks in, so I mean, I'm not overreacting right now too much to that, but that's definitely something on the back burner, on the radar.
It's not time to completely panic, but I don't blame you for benching him until he steps it up. The Chiefs kind of shown so far that they don't need him, and if a team doesn't need somebody and they're not trying to get him involved, then they won't. And the Chiefs are a team that they don't really care, I don't think. They're fine with just airing the ball out to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So if you can sit Clyde Edwards-Helaire and start somebody like a Hollywood Brown or somebody that you know, maybe got into later rounds, but he's been showing out so far, I don't blame you for doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to wrap up all the fan questions we had. Thank you guys for reaching out. Always feel free to reach out to us on Instagram, YouTube comments. Me, Ryan, and I are both on Twitter. Our links are in the description below. Reach out to us, ask us questions, and like and subscribe to this video. And let's get into our stardom sit-ums.
You starting or mine? I'll
go ahead and take this one. This is one that's kind of a controversial stardom to start out. I'm going to go ahead for the first start. Got Ryan Tannehill this week. At home versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this is controversial because Ryan Tannehill did not play that good against the Colts last year. Derrick Henry had some of his best statistical rushing games against the Colts last year. I'm not reading too much into it. The Colts have been very lackluster this season. Sure, they kept up with the Rams last week, but the Titans have a much high-powered offense than the Rams do. I know it's a division game. I know it's going to be tough at home against the Colts, no matter how bad they've been. But the Colts have given up a lot of points so far these past 2 weeks. Their defense has not looked very good. And the Titans offense finally got it together last week against the Seattle Seahawks defense, who also isn't very good, don't get me wrong. But they killed it last week. That blowout week 1 to the Cardinals was a fluke. I think that the Titans are going to come out on all cylinders again like we saw last week. They all kind of had a great fantasy day. Tannehill, Julio, A.J. Brown maybe, and even Derrick Henry was like player of the week. So I'm going to go ahead and go against the stigma of last year, Ryan Tannehill not playing good against the Colts, and I'm starting him this week.
That's fair. And my quarterback stardom of the week is Danny Dimes himself against Atlanta. Look, Daniel Jones was, I believe, a top 5 rusher last week in football. He had about 95 yards and a touchdown. And now he's going up against an Atlanta defense that is the worst against quarterbacks. Look, I look for Danny Dimes to have a pretty good day against Atlanta. There's not much there on defense. He can run, he can pass, and we've said it in fantasy all along. Rushing quarterbacks are a cheat code. Danny Dimes, although he doesn't scream rushing quarterback, he's one of the fastest in the league. Just put up 90 yards against Washington. Yeah, pretty good defense. So I can see him, you know, using the ground against Atlanta, getting you some yards, possibly getting you a touchdown, and he's definitely going to be able to throw the ball around the yard against his team. So I kind of look for a high-scoring game here, and Danny Dimes to be a top 10 or so quarterback. Definitely put him in your daily fantasy lineups.
Yeah, and that's kind of weird of you saying Daniel Jones the top 10 quarterback this week, but I see it playing against the Falcons, and I mean they put up a lot of points last week against Washington, so I mean they'll probably continue. Alrighty, and I'm moving on to my next stardom. This is just real quick. I want to throw this guy in there, Teddy Bridgewater. I know it's not saying much. They're playing against the Jets. The Broncos offense has been performing very good. I know they haven't played the best of defenses, but I mean, I'm not going to knock them. I mean, their offense looked good against the Jags. They look good against the Giants, and they're playing the Jets, who are arguably the worst team. So, I mean, if you need to stream a quarterback this week, or if you have him on your roster for some reason, Teddy Bridgewater is a stardom this week, 100%.
That's fair. I like Teddy Bridgewater, especially for daily fantasy. So I'll go ahead and jump to my first sit-em quarterback, and that is Derek Carr against the Dolphins. See, I know Derek Carr has been doing good the past 2 weeks. I believe he's 24, 25. And one of them was against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The only thing for me is that Derek Carr is going against this Dolphins defense that is pretty good. They just kind of shut down Josh Allen. I know that the Bills scored 35 points. I get that. But they still managed to hold Josh Allen to about 18 fantasy points. They did a lot on the running side of the ball. I don't see Derek Carr having a huge game against the Dolphins. Personally, I would rather you go in some other type of direction, as in a Danny Dimes, who you can get off the waivers, or not waivers, but you can just go ahead and pick up. Maybe even a Justin Fields if he's out there. I would rather have both of those streamer guys than I would a Derek Carr.
That's fair, and I like that. And my first and only sit-em quarterback this week, Jameis Winston, going against the Patriots. Now, I don't know, call me biased, whatever. I feel as though the Patriots defense is a little bit better than the Panthers defense. We saw what happened last week. I think Jameis finally came down to earth. Patriots defense hasn't looked bad the past few weeks. I know they played a healthy Tua and a Dolphins team okay, and then they shut down Zach Wilson last week. But Jameis, not a good start this week. The Saints offense didn't look in sync last week. Alvin Kamara was held to nothing. Jameis Winston threw a couple picks, definitely looked like he came back down to earth. And against his Patriots, Bill Belichick-led defense, I'm not touching Jameis with a 10-foot pole this week.
That's fair. So, jump to running backs?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. So my first stardom running back this week is Chase Edmonds against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now the Jaguars, week 1, they allowed David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, and
Mark Ingram.
Mark Ingram to score touchdowns against them. And then in week 2, who did they play against?
Who?
The Jaguars.
They played Denver last week.
They played Denver, who also did pretty good against them. So give me Chase Edmonds against the Jaguars here. I could see the Cardinals ended up kind of blowing him out of the water, which would allow Chase Edmonds to get a lot of touches in the fourth or so quarter. Chase Edmonds is a stud. We've seen it. He's the number 1 in this backfield right now. Kyler Murray loves feeding him the ball, passing, rushing. Chase Edmonds is the man that you want to have in this Arizona Cardinals backfield, and I can see him completely torching this Jaguars defense, who hasn't been able to slow down the Texans or really much anybody. So.
No, I like that one. And Chase Edmonds is a guy who is starting to get more and more involved in the passing game of the Cardinals like we thought this offseason. So, I mean, I'm sure he'll be on a lot more of these stardom teams rather than sit-ems. I don't see James Conner taking over anytime soon unless Edmonds goes down. God forbid, hopefully not. I don't wish injuries on anyone, but I like that one. And my first stardom running back, I know this is definitely getting too cute, but I have a reason behind it. Saquon Barkley. Starting him against the Falcons this week, who have been arguably the worst defense by far. I know, call me crazy, Saquon should be stardom without a question, but he's been questionable. He's coming back from the ACL injury. They had a tough schedule, Broncos week 1, and he only had a week of practice. Then they had a short week against Washington, but he's had that extra rest time since last Thursday's game, coming back Sunday against the Falcons. I'm sure the Giants will look to get Saquon going early. We saw he had a couple big runs again. He had a big run against Washington, was getting a lot of touches. So, I mean, call me crazy, and I'm sure I won't be saying this again for stardom because it's getting too cute, but Saquon Barkley has been on the stardom, sit-em cusp, maybe flex for the past couple weeks, but now he's definitely back to his running back 1 stardom every week.
That's fair. It's definitely good to put him on a stardom sit-em list now because he hasn't proved himself yet. So until he does, he's in that tier where you don't really know what to do with him. And this week he is a stardom. So I'll jump to my next stardom running back, and we mentioned it in the questions, Tyson Williams against the Lions. I mentioned that the Lions, they had one of the worst rushing defenses in football. I also mentioned that Williams is averaging 6.5 yards per carry and is leading this Ravens team in carries. Look, I see the Ravens blowing this team out of the water. I see them running all over the Lions, and Williams will be the lead back in that ordeal. I'm not worried about Latavius Murray. He might poach a touchdown, but like I said, I'm not worried about him. My man Williams is averaging 6.5 yards per carry. He's running out of his mind, so they're going to feed him a ton against Detroit.
No, I like that one, and I mean, I'll touch on that. We'll touch on that game more on the podcast, and I'll also touch on it in a minute when we get to our sit-ems. But my second stardom running back this week, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders has, I think he's got almost 200 yards rushing the past 2 games. He's been getting the ball a lot. He's been having a lot more volume than we thought. He's been running a lot better than we thought. The offensive line is still fairly healthy besides Brandon Brooks. So, I mean, and Miles Sanders has been proving the greatest podcast on turf wrong this fantasy season so far. And he's kind of a cowboy killer. Eagles, Cowboys, they always play each other tough. If it turns to a defensive standoff, maybe a lot of running involved, trying to get the running game going. I mean,
both teams are going to put up points.
I'm more of a go Cowboys this week just because I'm not a big Eagles guy. But I mean, I don't have Miles Sanders, but if I do, I'm starting him this week against Dallas.
That's fair. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to our sit-em running backs. We both came up with the same 2 running backs, so I'm going to take James Robinson against the Cardinals. Look, the Jaguars haven't figured out this whole starting running back thing. They don't really know what they're doing. James Robinson going against the Cardinals, there's 2 things going against him. 1 is how many touches he's going to get. 2 is game script. I see the Cardinals absolutely blowing this team out of the water, so why would you have James Robinson in there the whole entire game running up the middle? It ain't going to help you when you're down by 20, so I'm sitting James Robinson this week.
And for pretty much the same reasons is why I'm sitting DeAndre Swift this week against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens defense has been pretty good against running backs so far. They didn't give Josh Jacobs much. He had 40 yards and maybe a touchdown. They shut Clyde Edwards-Helaire down last week. Granted, there was a lot of points scored, but still. But yeah, DeAndre Swift, he's kind of been splitting touches with Jamal Williams a little bit, which is concerning to DeAndre Swift fantasy owners like myself. And I just, like you said about last game, I think the Ravens may put up a lot of points again like they did against Kansas City. So there's no really telling how involved DeAndre Swift is going to be involved in the game plan this week. And if they go down. So, I mean, I have other guys like Chase Claypool, Devontae Smith down on my bench who I probably would start over DeAndre Swift in a flex this week.
That's fair. And then my next running back sit-em this week is Darrell Henderson going up against the Bucs. The Bucs have shut down every single running back that they basically played against, except for Cordell Patterson. Guess my man's just a stud, but I don't see Darrell Henderson doing much. He's banged up. He might not even play. It's looking like he's going to play, but he's still banged up, and he's going against his Bucs defense that shuts down everybody. So I would definitely not feel confident starting Darrell Henderson.
And that is why he's staying on my bench. Swift was my only sit-em running back. Like you said, we had the same two in Henderson and Robinson. So I'll move on to my only start on my receiver this week that I had. I mean, a lot of tough matchups, but one of the guys, besides all of the, there's getting too cute. There's guys like DK Metcalf, who didn't have a good week, who I would say, but he's getting started every week. Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton has been seeing a lot of targets in that Broncos offense, playing against the Jets defense, who is god-awful, who Bryce Hall is their main corner. Courtland Sutton's the receiver one with Jerry Jeudy banged up. It's him and Tim Patrick running the show. Courtland Sutton has been seeing majority of the targets, getting a lot of yards, putting up a lot of fantasy points. I think he had a slow week 1, but week 2 last week, he had about 15 fantasy points or so. So, look for him to pick up where he left going, like I said about Teddy Bridgewater earlier, against this god-awful Jets defense.
That's fair. I had 2 starting receivers, so I'll go ahead and list them off. The first one is Sterling Shepard versus the Falcons. I also mentioned that Danny Dimes is my starting quarterback, so if you can manage to stack Danny Dimes and Sterling Shepard for your fantasy team, 1, good for you. 2, I respect you for doing it. If you start both of them, you have all my respect. The next wide receiver that I'm going to mention is Hollywood Brown. I saw a stat that the last 6 games he's had 70 yards or a touchdown. He's lit it up both games so far this season, and he's playing against a Lions defense that absolutely sucks.
Yep.
Debo destroyed him week 1. They didn't look good week 2 either, so give me Hollywood Brown.
I like that one. Yeah, he was on waiver wire pickup as well. He's only rostered in 66% of leagues going into Tuesday. Going into Monday night, he was only rostered on 66% of leagues. I'm sure that number drastically increased after waiver wire transactions Wednesday. So I had 2 sit-em receivers this week. Speaking of the New York Jets, Corey Davis is a sit-em this week. He had 1 8-yard reception against the Patriots last week. Zach Wilson hasn't looked good. Throwing a lot. He just hasn't looked good. The Jets don't look good, and they're playing a tough Denver Broncos defense, who has been playing very good this season so far. Yeah, they lost Bradley Chubb. Yeah, they lost Jose Jewell. But they signed Micah Kaiser to the practice squad, who is probably about the same as Jose Jewell. And, their edge rushers with Von Miller have been holding it up fine without Bradley Chubb. So I'm not looking too much into that. I'm definitely sitting Corey Davis this week, especially in how loaded the Broncos secondary is and how bad Zach Wilson's looked so far.
My first sit-em wide receiver is Jaylen Waddle versus the Raiders. Last week, Jaylen Waddle did not have a great game. He had a fumble, didn't do too good. And partially that is because of Jacoby Brissett. Brown's going to call him Brisket. Jacoby Brissett being in the game. And look, Jacoby's going to start again. Jacoby and Jaylen, they don't have a great connection. So I'm sitting Jaylen Waddle against this Raiders team.
No, I like that one. And for my final sit-em wide receiver this week, Brandon Cooks tonight against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers defense has looked very good, borderline arguably top 10 defense so far. Look for him, and Tyrod Taylor's out. The only reason Brandon Cooks was doing good is because Tyrod Taylor was out. Now they're bringing in Davis Mills, 3rd-round draft pick, who we don't know what we're going to get. Yeah, he threw a touchdown last week. Cleveland's secondary hasn't looked that good. So, I'm not going to fully discredit Tyrod, I'm going to fully discredit Davis Mills on this one. I'm not starting Brandon Cooks this week. I don't have him in any leagues because the Texans are terrible. Yeah, sitting Brandon Cooks this week until I know what I'm going to get from Davis Mills. Panthers defense has looked good, so tonight I probably wouldn't start Brandon Cooks. Get him out of your lineup. Andrew, you got finessed by Jake.
My next sit-on wide receiver is Michael Pittman going up against the Titans. I could see, well, we don't really know. Carson Wentz sprained, I think, both of his ankles. Not sure how you do it, but he did. So who's going to be throwing the ball to Michael Pittman? It is Jacob Eason. How that's going to go, we don't know. So with that being said, if you have anybody else that you can start over Michael Pittman, please do so. I would start a Rondale Moore over Michael Pittman any day of the week. Rondale Moore was arguably in my stardoms list, but anybody but Michael Pittman.
I would hope if you're playing fantasy football, you have another receiver to start over Michael Pittman. If he is your receiver 1 or 2, that's a problem, and you should probably trade a running back or a tight end or whoever you have too many of.
Some people have 3 receivers, but
yeah,
anybody
just
else?
Some other names I want to throw out there. A sleeper this week I had was Justin Fields. Like I said, Cleveland's secondary hasn't looked good. It's his first game. We know how it is in the NFL with these quarterbacks that there's not a lot of film on. Saw it with Jalen Hurts last year. Saw it with Taylor Heineke last year. They came in and they lit it up. I mean, the Browns know they're scheming against Justin Fields now that Andy Dalton's out. So, I mean, maybe that may be different. But Justin Fields is a sleeper this week. And for a most likely breakout this week I think we may see Najee Harris's breakout game. Bengals defense ain't that good, and I think a potential bust this week could be Joe Burrow because he did not look good last week.
I'll throw out my sleeper. It is Rondale Moore. I just mentioned him. If you were too late on the train, it's coming.
Sorry.
It's coming. I picked him up in all my leagues that I was able to. I got Rondale Moore. I really want to start him. Like, I really, really do. Just because of the fact that he could potentially be the next big thing. So, be sure to check him out against the Jaguars.
Yeah, I think that's going to wrap this video up. Thank you guys for answering question or asking a question. If you asked us a question, thank you. We love interacting with you guys. We love getting questions. It makes us feel very good. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check out all our content, get your lineup set, place your bets, win some money. See you guys next week.
Check out our sponsor, Little Italy Pizzeria, CM Apparel.
See ya.